Hi, everyone. It's Amrita, and I'm back with another conversation for the Health Collective, which turned 9 this year. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month. We'll be celebrating World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October, and I'm excited to hear from so many of you on your journeys. Today, it brings me great pleasure to bring Cailin Hargreaves, the author of this book, Glimmers, into a chat with us. And I'm hoping that, Cailin, we have a lovely conversation. Huge congratulations to you for this book, first off, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to have a conversation about this with you.
So I was just going to give a short introduction, Kaylin, and jump in when I get anything wrong. But you
Okay.
are London-based. You're
Yes.
you're a poet. You're an author. I was just reading that you're someone who dealt with an autoimmune disorder from the age of 10. There's a point in your journey when you had to deal with anxiety as well, and you write that you used words to help you find your safe space, to find healing. It looks like that's your mission to extend that outward for folks to find refuge in work like this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, as you said, I was diagnosed with autoimmune disease when I was 10. And at the time, you kind of adjust very well to it as a child. It doesn't really affect you too much. You adapt quite well. It wasn't until I was much older, around 2021, that I started to really feel the effects of having that happen to me. Because at the time it was a bit traumatic what I had gone through because it was such a sudden change in my life. And it kind of built silently until I was much older. It was suppressed for a while. And then I found it a bit overwhelming with all these feelings that I was feeling that I didn't really know why or what was happening. It was kind of a lot of it was subconscious. And so I was always into poetry and writing in school, and I found it very interesting to me. So I started writing as a way to kind of just help me understand what was happening and what I was feeling and something to channel it into quite purposefully. And at first it was quite I didn't really know what I was doing or what I wanted from the process. I just found it quite healing just to be able to have some time to just focus on myself and dedicate that into just kind of learning what I was feeling.
That's incredible. And, it's such a testament to your work that you wanted to also share this, to your journey, that you wanted to share this with other people who may not have found their own creative outlet. I do want to ask you a little bit about this. You're calling it a daily journal for positive reflection. And, there's also, I will come to the sort of more cynical, skeptical conversations we have about self-care, because that's become such an industry now, in a way. It feels like sometimes. And actually, let's backtrack for a second. Will you tell us what a glimmer is? And I was amazed. Like, I love this whole thing of an anti-trigger. What is a
Yes.
glimmer? What does it mean to you? And how does that work?
It's so glimmer's the opposite of a trigger. So obviously triggers are things that kind of spark, I guess, negative kind of emotions, or they spark those feelings in you that are traumatic or that just have quite heavy feelings or experiences that you've been through. And a glimmer is the opposite of that. So it's something that triggers positivity and joy, and you notice something, and it puts a smile on your face. So I wanted to kind of make the journal and the name of the journal something that just inspires that glimmer every day that you see something to help you smile or help you feel better. Um, and yeah, I think that was really important because in the wellness community and in the self-help community, you hear about triggers all the time.
Yeah.
It's so much in the rhetoric of that space. And so I kind of wanted to do something that was opposite and more positive, but is it like a play on words as well?
Yeah. And it's something that seems to be catching on, right? I'm seeing more of this on Instagram where people are saying that, your friends or the folks who send you those little, it's like pebbling or like little glimmers, they're those cute memes. But it's literally like you're saying anything that makes you, come to the moment, appreciate something, find some joy or hope would
Yeah.
be a glimmer.
It's also like
Incredible.
I was saying, it's also like a glimmer to me is like a light as well. It's like a ray of light in your day, like the sun, something to uplift you as well. So it's like a double meaning as well. And my first book was called Be the Light. And so I have this theme of light behind my words that
Yes.
I just want to kind of illuminate the positivity in life because there's so much darkness.
Yeah, that is for sure. And that is even if, someone hasn't gone through some of the experiences you've had to go through. But right now, it feels like we're living in this kind of doom and gloom era, right? So I guess
Sure.
it's even more important than ever So I'm going to come to the journal. Before that, I was going to ask you then, maybe as an example, is there anything today that would have been a glimmer for you? I don't know. Like you're sitting in a cafe. Is there anything that you can think of that would have been a glimmer?
Yes, well, I was just sitting in a different table when I moved to this table to have this talk with you. But as I was doing my work and someone came to sit next to me and just started having a conversation and we just found something in common to have with. So just random moments that kind of pull you out of your little world and kind of make you more present. I think it's really nice when you just have a connection with someone random that you haven't seen before. And that was definitely a glimmer for me to connect with someone.
That's lovely. And I think the thing is of having the experience and then reflecting on it, right? Because then you realize that because we tend to have a, I guess, negativity bias with a lot of things. Like you feel like
Yes.
you notice all the awful things that happen. But here you're kind of consciously and trying to make us also think about, like with some of your prompts, specific things like acts of kindness. There's something about healing. So let me ask you, when you decided to do this book, what made you sort of what inspired you to do it as a journal? And there are these beautiful illustrations. I'm hoping we can show some of them in post production, but really
Yes.
beautiful illustrations, which is what really first caught my attention. Is like, the healing, the chapters are gorgeous. You could just
Thank you.
spend time looking at these illustrations as well. It's just, and it's just so, like, I feel like it's so calming to just like sit and go through the illustrations themselves. Why did you want to do it as a journal?
So I have, as I was saying, I have a first book called Be the Light, which was purely just a poetry book. And
Mm.
so Be the Light, it was kind of my way of being a light to people who had been through something similar and just needed some words of encouragement and just that reflection of having someone that helped them see the light in some of the darkness that they've been through. And I think
Mm.
Glimmers is more of a practical thing that you can do for yourself. I wanted people to be able to orchestrate that light themselves and be able to kind of bring themselves to a place where they're able to, be the positivity in their own lives, not just have someone tell them to be positive, but to have the tools and the resources to be able to reflect on their experiences, things they've been through, and just extract those glimmers themselves. Because there is an element of this that is you have to kind of notice the glimmers yourself. You have to be present. You have to be aware. You have to keep bringing yourself into the moment, because I think for me, when you have anxiety, you're kind of in your head so much and you don't get to really notice the things around you.
Mm.
And so I would find myself going through, hours of the day, just not really being aware or present of what's happening. And so it takes a lot of effort to pull yourself out, to notice the glimmers, to be in the moment. And so I really wanted to give people the tools to be able to do that themselves, which is why I think the journal route really opens people up to doing the work and thinking about the feelings and digging deep. And, that's the hard part.
And you have these, so you have a poem. Do you know any of these, by the way, that you could recite for us? Any of the short poems that you have here, like the joy one?
Yes, I could get some for you to recite.
That would be great.
When you start doing things from your heart, life will show you how every moment can be art. Fall in love with the beauty of today.
Yay, thank you so much. So you have the little poem and you have the illustrations. And I think, from what you were saying about how people can use this, because of course, unfortunately, not everyone can write poetry. Not everyone can, create art so beautifully, but you've made it clear that each of us can actually contribute and make this journal like sort of fully fleshed out with our experiences, which we have to do ourselves.
Yes. So it's also, I think sometimes people can get a bit overwhelmed with the fact that, oh, I'm not really a writer. I'm not that creative. I don't really know how to do this. And it's also a way for people to be able to easily access those feelings just with the prompts and be able to be guided through that, and to show them that it's not something that is overwhelming or scary. In fact, everybody can do it. You don't have to be the most creative person in the world or be really emotionally in tune with your feelings. It's part of the process that
Mm.
you develop that emotional intelligence to try and understand all these feelings that you're going through, because at the beginning it's very overwhelming to have such heavy feelings and you don't really know why you're feeling them. You don't really know how to process them. And I think that is kind of what can put people off and scare them, just the weight of the emotion that you're feeling. And I feel like in
Yeah.
today's society, there's not many places where people feel comfortable to share. Or there's also like a loneliness epidemic that's happening where
Yeah.
it's just people are so disconnected as well with social media. So I think this is a really nice way for people to just be able to kind of do that self-care in a simple way that's not overwhelming. And the illustrations, I hope, adds an element of, is quite serious, when you're writing. So I hope the illustration breaks it up and just gives you a pause to just have a look and take a moment and, just appreciate the art and the poetry in between it as well. Kind of like me encouraging and edging you on to keep going and it's okay. And so I kind of wanted that element. So it wasn't just prompts. I wanted it to have like
Yeah.
an element of softness to it as well.
No, it feels, yeah, I mean, 100%. It feels super friendly. It's like you're there giving like gentle nudges. Like
Yeah.
this is the journey we're going on together. Like you're not alone. And I noticed you also have some tips. So one of the tips, or maybe you can give us a couple of tips on how to use this. One is you say be consistent, which seems
Right.
like that's probably the hardest thing for people like who have a bad ear for this kind of thing, right? So will you take us through that and why, maybe one more tip and why that's important?
Yeah. I do think that's a difficult one because when I started journaling, I too was not consistent with it because I think it's more, I felt for me, something that I had to learn to do for myself. And I was so comfortable just doing things for everybody else and not putting myself first in this situation. I think this is self-care where you really have to put yourself first and you have to say, I'm going to dedicate 10 minutes a day to really work through my emotions or really work on myself as this is calming for me. And just honor that and do that for myself. And I think when you consistently do it, you build a confidence to keep putting that effort into working on yourself, which I think then just helps improve your whole life because you're able to just, first of all, you're taking time to care for yourself, which just has a ripple effect in your life because you're raising the standard you have for yourself because you're saying this is important to me, and I'm going to dedicate myself to do this and I want to be a better person. And so the consistency is very important for it to make a difference to your everyday life. But I can understand at the beginning, it is difficult. And I think sometimes what happens is people get a little bit too deep into their emotions and they pull back because it can get a bit scary and overwhelming. And then you kind of just don't return because you're afraid of what might come out or you're afraid of the emotions that you're feeling. I would say just try to push through that and just, even if it's for 2-3 minutes a day where you just read a prompt and write one sentence, just at the beginning, just doing something is what will help you build the habit. And I would say another tip would be to pair it with a ritual that you have. So, for example, for me in the morning, I would have a morning cup of tea and I would say, okay, in the morning, I'm going to have a cup of tea and I'm going to do 5 minutes of my journaling. And so I really enjoyed my morning tea. And so I paired it with something that I looked forward to. And it just became part of the habit, like having a cup of tea did. And so it made it a bit easier for me. And so I would encourage people to do it in a way or pair it with something that they really enjoy so they build positive emotions around it.
Yeah, and then it feels more like a fun thing you're doing for yourself. Fun sometimes, and sometimes, as you said, it can be a bit like digging deeper for emotions, but rather than a task, right? Like it's meant to be something that's kind of you're taking care of yourself. And so you spoke about social media a while ago and the loneliness epidemic, but I noticed your Insta, and you have this lovely Insta fam. Your Insta is it's such a corner of like joy on the internet. So congratulations on that. And how did you decide that you want to like create this community, curate this community, and curate this space in such a way that it actually mirrors what you're doing with this?
Well, when I first started my Instagram, I was in a place where I was working quite a stressful job that I was not exactly happy in. And so it was definitely an outlet for me. And I did it anonymously. And it was just a way for me to kind of express my emotions and kind of like therapy for myself. And it kind of built and it grew in a way that I never thought that it would. And as I started sharing more of my work, I realized how many people felt the same and how connected everybody is in a sense of we all kind of feel the same things. We all kind of go through different situations, but we experience the same range of human emotions. And I think the more vulnerable I was, the more people shared how much they had gone through and how helpful it was just to have a community where they felt seen and heard, and just a safe place, like you said, where there is just positivity. Because I think on the internet these days, especially on Instagram, it can be a platform where you kind of see people's highlight reel, or you see just everything good and everybody doing so well in life, and no one really showing the difficult parts that we go through, the emotional strife that we go through as humans, all the different things we experience. And so you kind of look on social media, and you compare yourself and your situation to things that are not based in reality. And so I just wanted my platform to be somewhere where people felt it was genuine, it was real, they could be themselves, they could be honest. And I think part of that was just staying genuine to myself and being honest about what I was going through, sharing and just connecting with people. And so I think keeping that theme behind my platform has helped it to grow. And I think people just really connect when you share vulnerability, because everybody goes through the same thing, different situation. And you might think, oh, I'm so alone, no one else can understand. There are lots of people who are going through something similar, or just really needing some support and help as well. So it's so nice to be able to share that and see how people in the comments and people interact and people uplift each other. And I just think that in today's world and society, you kind of see the opposite of that. You kind of forget that that's there, but it is there. And there is this human connection and humanity that we're all part of. I just wish to bring more light to that.
I love that. And you're right. We do tend to forget until you find these sort of corners and you're like, wait, no, actually people still want to connect. And I love what you said about, folks, also it helps people feel less alone, right? When you see the reality versus the super filtered kind of carousels we're used to. But your talent is really incredible. I mean, again, thank you so much for sharing this with the world. Thank you for having this chat with us. Just a couple more questions for you, Cailin, just to ask you, because it is interesting how you use poetry, use words, use art. And you've said it earlier in this chat as well that it was helpful for you to also figure out sometimes what you were feeling, to find a way to cope with what you were dealing with. When did you get that confidence, or where did you get that confidence from in your own journey, to share that more publicly? Because that feels like the hardest thing to do, even as we talk about vulnerability and how much you can bring a community together, but just to share your own story so openly takes a lot of courage as well. So I just wanted to understand a little bit from you on how did that happen, and when did you decide that you want to share a bit more about your own journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, at the beginning, I was quite nervous to share my story and my words. As I was saying, I think for the first year of my account, it was anonymous, so I didn't really want to share who I was. I kind of just wanted it to be an outlet and to be something that people just came to the platform for the words, because I think that sometimes as an artist, as a writer, you can get judged just for the way that you look or the things that you do rather than the work that you create. So I just wanted people to be able to connect to the words without a bias of what does that person look like, because I think sometimes that can affect the art. But the more people connected with the words, I think the more people wanted to kind of know who was behind it, just so that they could put a face to what was happening, to know that this person was real, because I think they just needed like a human connection. And I think once I started sharing more and I realized, as I was saying, that these are common things, I'm not alone here. People are going through the same thing, I started to feel empowered, because it was kind of like the vulnerability was helping me heal and helping other people heal. So it was kind of like, hey, this is a good thing. This is a great community. We're building something positive here. And there's no reason to hide behind the words anymore. There's no reason to be scared of sharing my story, because if I can help other people tell their story, then that's amazing. And so for that, I would have to be brave, and I would have to share who I was, and I would have to share more about my situation, my childhood, the things that I experienced. And honestly, I think it was the community that helped me build that courage and that empowerment. And so when I say be the light, and I say, glimmers, this theme of sun and light, I genuinely do think that the people who have supported my platform, who have shared, who have been vulnerable, they are the light that helped me also be a light to everybody else. So it's kind of like an echo chamber of people just sharing glimmers and sharing light, and it just built and built and built. And it really encouraged me to just share my own story for everybody else as well, because I think the the togetherness and the connection you feel,
Yeah.
it's just such a powerful thing for people to
Yeah.
know that it's a community and this is a safe space, and this is okay to feel this way.
Yeah. You're like the anti-cynic in my life right now. I love this. I think that importance of that, the fact that, people need this, you need connection more than ever. And we've been looking at, social media as a sort of double-edged sword, right? Because it can actually, keep you quite isolated while making you feel that you're
Right.
connected. But in this case, this sounds like such a meaningful space for so many people. Like, I think it's like 75,000, close to 100,000 people. Are there any responses to your work, to either of your books? Any responses that have stayed with you from strangers
I
or that
guess
surprised you?
so many messages, people say, this really helped me, in my direct messages as well as comments and stuff like that. So I think it's really difficult to pick ones that
Mhm.
have really stayed with me. But I did have someone who was going through a health journey, who was battling with cancer, and she said she took some of my poetry and wrote it on sticky notes and put it all over her house to encourage her as she was going through chemo. And it really, really helped her just to stay positive during that time, and just be reminded of the glimmers in such a dark time that she was going through. And I just found that so powerful, that she was able to just stay so positive and do something for herself, where she was putting those notes everywhere, and just trying to see the good in life, even though she was going through one of the hardest things you can go through.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
really stayed with me as well. And I thought, wow, how powerful words can be for people.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
she's doing
Yeah.
really well now as well. I keep up to date with her, and she's in recovery, and so it's really nice story.
I'm so happy to hear that. No, and you're right. It just really speaks to like it's a testament to your work, right? I mean, that it can make someone feel less alone during such a difficult time. That's incredible. Kailin, thank you so much. I don't know if you have any last words for your fans or readers in India. I think we should definitely try and do a giveaway, which we'll do a giveaway to
Yes,
our audience here. But any final thoughts for your fans here?
I just, I want to say, as I said, this platform and everything that I've done is just because of everybody sharing their stories with me, sharing what they're going through. And so it's not just me. I think it's everybody else having the courage to share theirs that helps motivate and empower me. So I don't think this book and this platform exists without, all my followers and everybody else who encourages and comments and just shares positivity. It's really a group effort, I think. And so, yeah, just wishing lots of light and positivity to everybody. And I really am grateful to be able to speak with you and just, share that with everybody else.
Thank you so much, and wishing you lots of light and glimmers back at you. Thank you for showing us the way in many ways, and I hope you get many more readers and many more community members. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.